Dun, 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 dun.
Ooh, hello and good morning.
I'll be right there. I'll be right there. Excuse me. Sorry. Pardon. Yep. Yep. There we go.
It's all good.
Hi, shiny happy people. Welcome to Needs Midwest. I'm your host, Luke, but as long as you're nice, you can call me whatever you want. And with me today is my friend,
Lee.
And by the way, my pronouns are he, him.
As are mine.
So, Lee, what is your understanding of why you're here today?
The way I understood it is just to kind of give a view of what it's like to be an autistic person within the La Crosse area, what challenges and benefits that I have and face within that lens of reality.
That is absolutely correct. And I also want to get your point of view on how you think going through those struggles may have changed other people's paradigms for the next generation to come through and have more accommodations.
Absolutely.
All right, so where do you want to start?
Wherever you want to.
So there's this bus stop in Onalaska outside APAC, Xira 2003.
I know the location. I know the time and place.
And I was waiting for the bus, and there was this other guy waiting for the bus, and I didn't know anything about him, but I saw him wearing clothing that looked really cool and interesting to me, had fun little logos and slogans, and he just looked like the kind of guy who, I don't know if you didn't care what other people thought, or you just really wanted to be who you were more.
To this day, though, I still kind of care what other people think, although I'm working on growing beyond that, as far as I just wanted to express myself in the way that I thought was appropriate. And speaking of the slogans and stuff on the shirts, that has not changed. My shirt says, I didn't try to wake up awesome this morning, it just kind of happened.
I agree with that shirt, and I also realized I forgot my Red Bull. I'll be right back.
Take your time.
Excuse me.
It's not like I'm duct taped to the chair or anything.
I don't have any duct tape. But there may be some Gorilla Glue under there. Pardon me.
Sharp.
Excuse me. Oh no, I'm caught. Got it. You take that?
Absolutely.
Thank you. Do we need anything else while I'm out here?
No, I don't think so.
Yeah, just take some rum.
Oh.
And some brandy.
Well then.
They're actually water.
I know.
All right. And I'm going to come back.
Okay.
All right. Here we go. Here we go. No, you get back in there.
Escaping octopus.
Yeah, Pody. All right. Fine. You can sit there. And just there. All righty. Now that I have my comfort animal, this episode is not brought to you by Red Bull. However, I really hope that they see this and want to sponsor me, because I literally drink 6 to 8 of them a day. It's okay, my doctors know, and I got good blood pressure. Here goes the good stuff. Red Bull. Doesn't give you wings, but it sure makes you want to sing.
There you go. Nothing wrong with that.
All right. So now, enough of my artificial plug.
It's okay.
Where do you want to start?
Oh, I could start by just going into details about, as an autistic person, the challenges that I face in a community like La Crosse, or like in communities in general.
Okay.
In a lot of cases, we live in a world that's specifically designed for neurotypical people. Neurotypical being people that don't have autism, people who don't have ADHD, don't have stuff like dyslexia, dyscalculia. And
so what the masses would refer to as a normal or average person.
exactly, normal I hate that term.
I hate it too.
It's the setting on my dishwasher.
People who are born with the ability to create the proper chemicals in their brain to sustain their emotions and maintain themselves through life. I don't have that. I don't have all my brain chemicals.
Neither do I. But like some of the challenges that I personally face is the world can be incredibly loud, incredibly bright.
Are these lights okay for you?
Your lights are perfectly fine.
Okay.
Another issue that has actually been creeping up, at least on my end, is we live in a society that tends to be rather touchy-feely. People want to express their affection for you physically and will go so far as to force hugs and handshakes on folks without consent. Now, granted, I know a lot of people out there that before they do that to me, they will ask first, and for that, I am incredibly grateful.
Did I do that, or did I hug you right away?
You ask first, and
okay,
I appreciate that. But like working in the service industry and food service, something that I've been doing since I was 16 years old, a lot of people anymore will not say stuff like, oh, excuse me, can you help me? They will literally walk up to you and either tap you on the shoulder, grab you by the shirt, lay hands on your arm, your waist, your hips, as a means of getting your attention. And when someone is touch averse or has sensory issues based around touch, that can, at the very least, make the individual uncomfortable, with worst case scenarios sending them into a sensory overload, an autistic meltdown, or a negative thought spiral.
I have witnessed this with my sibling. And at the time, he didn't get the proper testing. We didn't know he had Asperger's. My parents, with the knowledge that we had in the 80s and 90s, my parents just thought he was a troubled kid. Like, they'd given up on him. He didn't get diagnosed with Asperger's until he was in his mid-20s. And I'm grateful that we know what his diagnosis is, because then I'm able to learn how to better communicate with him.
Absolutely. And that was kind of the issue that I faced myself, is I didn't get diagnosed with autism until I was in my mid-20s. And the only reason that ended up happening is my mom saw all the struggles that I was facing, and she was a special education teacher for 30 years in the West Salem School District. So she could see all the markers in me for being autistic. But the fact that she was a special educator and not a clinical psychologist or psychiatrist, she couldn't officially diagnose me. So she, because I was on her insurance at the time, set me up with a diagnostician within Gunderson Hospital. And I was able to get officially diagnosed with autism. Now, having the diagnosis that late in life, there are significant challenges, because you're now being fully immersed in a label that you instinctively knew that you had, but now that label...
Stigma.
Yep, the stigma associated with that, and like, oh, I can't be autistic because I don't do this, and I don't do that, and I don't do this other thing over here. Well, wait a minute. Now we're going to research this and be like, oh, shit. And so there's that adapting process, destigmatizing yourself from it, and also working through any internalized ableism that you may have experienced over your years, like, oh, autistic people do this and I want nothing to do with that. Autistic people are like this, I want nothing to do with that.
Self-rejection because afraid of that stigma.
Exactly.
I've done that with a lot of diagnoses in my life, emotional and cognitive.
And when it boils right down to it, autism isn't the boogeyman that a lot of organizations like Autism Speaks make it out to be. It's just a neurological difference that, with the right tools and accommodations, an individual with autism can be successful in our world. Because there's a lot of organizations out there and individuals that work with people with autism that are under the opinion that autistic people cannot hold down a job. Autistic people can't ever get married. that autistic people would have a weird time with sexual encounters, that autistic people won't be able to hold down a job, which in a lot of cases that's true, but only because businesses and employers don't want to accommodate autistic people, so therefore the unemployment rate for autistic people is in the 70 to 90 percentile.
Yeah, and I want to point out that when you were going through that list, you started with not able to hold down jobs and you came back to it. I've noticed that people will go through some cycles. They'll get their self-confidence, they'll feel good about themselves, they're excited about being in that location and being able to contribute. But then when they start having issues with maintaining those things, the self-esteem just goes all the way through the to the floor, and
Yep.
it just cycles again and again.
Yep, and that's where if you get yourself into a good employer, like using the employment end of things as a reference, if you get yourself into a good employer who is willing to go and give you the accommodations that you need, set you up with a baseline routine, that routine might vary from day to day, like Monday you have this routine, Tuesday you have this routine, Wednesday you have a different routine, but as long as there's enough communication ahead of time and those routines are set and your employer communicates with you if there's going to be a change and communicates it enough in advance so that you can mentally adapt yourself to that, then there won't be as many issues or any issues at all, because that autistic person has their expectations of the job met, and then they can provide the best that they personally can for their employer. That's why I'm very grateful for my employer right now. My supervisor and a lot of people that I work with are neurodivergent people, autism, ADHD, and the like, and they know how my brain works, I know how their brains work, and we work together to become a cohesive unit that is successful.
And I actually feel that a lot of autistic people, at least that I have had direct interactions with, they almost have things figured out better and more clearly than the average Joe, John, or Sally walking around on the street. Because you've had to learn at a younger age what your rules are for how to interact with stimuli around you.
Yep. No, 100%. And that's why you'll see autistic people when they go to the store, they're going to go to a store that they know has overbearing music, like not bad music, but it's so loud that they can't hear themselves think. They'll go in with ear defenders or sound dampening headphones on. Or if they have overly bright or LED lights in the grocery store, they'll wear their sunglasses into the grocery store to accommodate those.
And blue light.
Yep. One of the autistic content creators that I follow on Facebook, I can't remember her handle for the life of me, she has an issue with personal space and touch. And she has a specific service dog that when she goes out in public, the dog will actually walk in circles around her at a 3-foot gap to keep people from approaching her so that she doesn't go into sensory load and overload because of people getting too close. And so with those accommodations, an individual with autism can actually be successful within our world as long as people are willing to give us those accommodations.
I think getting personal stories out from the perspective of the person with autism having to deal with these difficulties may be what helps change the paradigm of those that make the rules and regulations for how we're supposed to interact.
Absolutely. And a lot of that stuff is specifically coded into the Americans with Disabilities Act. If an individual goes into an employer or a business, they are allowed to request reasonable accommodations.
I love reasonable accommodations.
And that can vary from autistic person to autistic person. Like myself with my employer, all I asked for is a routine, space to get a moment if I need to do my stimming techniques to calm my brain down, or if I just need to get away for a few minutes and take a deep breath and focus myself. And they're like, oh yeah, absolutely. If that's all you need more, let us know. And my employer was like, that's great. Whereas I've talked with autistic people myself and listened to their stories online where the idea of even getting that, employers will push back against that because they see reasonable accommodations like that
as an inconvenience.
As an inconvenience, but also as costing money.
Yeah.
And there is no cost in really giving an autistic individual 2 minutes off the side to use a stim toy or flex their fingers or flap their arms for a moment just to calm themselves down so that they can actually get back to a safe mental place to do their jobs.
When I'm really stressed, I need to physically shake it off.
Oh, absolutely.
Just feel every little bit of skin touching every little bit of clothing, reminding me I have a body.
Yep, absolutely.
I actually have some stimming things that you're going to leave with.
Okay.
So
well, I appreciate that.
We'll do that later.
No worries.
So, can you tell us a personal story about how a time when you felt held back and a time when you felt encouraged forward?
Well, as in regards to being held back, it was an incident when I was out grocery shopping by myself. At that time, I wore prescription sunglasses because there are so many places that had really harsh halogen or LED lights in the stores, and I wore my prescription sunglasses, and it didn't go well for me because there was this individual. She was unhappy with the fact that she couldn't see my eyes, and so she walked up and physically removed my sunglasses from my face and took them away from me. And she said, well, I need to be able to see everyone's eyes so I know that they're not suspicious. And I'm like, ma'am, I need those. The lights here are hurting my eyes. I need those as an accommodation. And she's like, well, you need to accommodate me and let me see your eyes. And I ended up having to get a store manager involved. She gave me my glasses back very begrudgingly.
Was she a staff or customer?
Customer. My first straight-on experience with a Karen. But, so that's very discouraging. It made me not really want to be in that store, even though the store had nothing to do with it. As far as an encouraging experience, it actually, when I started working at my first Quick Trip, so this would be almost 2 years ago.
Okay.
When I went into the store that I would first be working at, I explained to my store lead at the time that I'm autistic. And the first words out of her mouth were, okay, what do you need to be successful? And I sat down with her. We went over back and forth over a few things. She even went so far as she reorganized and alphabetized our order guide to make it easier for me to handle. And just due to those little accommodations, the store I went at, our food sales doubled just because I was able to focus on the numbers, focus on doing my job, and she gave me the tools I needed to actually be successful in that environment.
I love it when we're able to change the environment for us versus changing ourselves to fit the environment.
Which, it's interesting that you say it that way because most often autistic people have to change themselves to fit the environment. Also called autism masking. So you have to mask your autistic traits so that you can blend in and not get ridiculed or verbally and physically abused in some situations and get what you need out of wherever you're at. Whereas with my current employer, I don't have to do that. I can be my full, true, and authentic self where I'm working.
That makes me so happy. Do you feel comfortable saying the company again?
Quick Trip.
Quick Trip.
Yep.
And for those people that don't know what Quick Trip is, here in the Midwest, it started as a little old grocery store or gas station.
In Eau Claire.
In Eau Claire, Wisconsin. And how many stores you guys got now?
In the 800 range.
In the 800 range. How many distribution centers?
Right now, I don't know off the top of my head.
more than one, obviously, at least one, I know for sure. It's a really great company. I've heard wonderful things about it. I have been trying to get a job that fits my reasonable accommodations with my concussion recovery. I have a little bit of aphasia. My words don't always come out right, and depending on how far away I am from the last time I took my medicine, sometimes it takes me longer to get my words out.
And I understand. I had to deal with a concussion myself a few years ago, and they are not fun.
Now, how long have you had this hat?
So that's an interesting story. So this is my second hat like this.
Oh, okay.
My first version of this hat I got in the spring of 1997. And unbeknownst to me at that time, my mom got the same hat in the same size and in the same color. Fast forward to when my son is a infant. He is 9 years old now, so this is about 8.5 years ago. He spit up all over the original version of this hat that I got in 97. And my dog got a hold of it.
Let me clean this for you, Daddy.
Yep, and there were stains and bite marks and tears in the original hat, and I was very disappointed because then because I needed to wear a hat for working in food service to restrain my hair, and I was very sad because now I had to wear baseball caps, and I hate baseball caps. They send me into sensory issues.
Yeah, I don't like wearing brims because I've hit my head on a lot of things.
Oh, 100%. And my mom saw that I was very unhappy wearing baseball caps, and she dropped this one in my lap, and she's like, "You don't look the same without that hat." And I'm like, "Well, did you buy this for me?" And she's like, "No, not really, but I've had it as long as you've had your original one, so you can have this one." And so yeah, this hat is almost 30 years old.
Wow.
And it still looks damn good. So
Thanks, Mom.
Yep.
So just take a moment. Remember when she gave you that hat, what you were feeling, what was your emotions?
Honestly, at that time, I felt it was unexpected, but I felt very loved, very appreciated, and that my mom felt very accepting of the identity I held because of this hat.
I love that. That makes me so happy. I wish everybody can have a moment like that they can call upon when they need to get a serotonin boost.
Heck yeah.
So we've been talking for about 20 minutes.
Okay.
Is there anything else you want to talk about?
Well, I do actually kind of want to backtrack a little bit to my statement about organizations like Autism Speaks.
Yeah.
So on the surface, an organization like Autism Speaks makes it look like they are trying to be supportive of autistic people and of the autistic community. That is honestly not the case, though. One of the things that they have done is they have promoted the idea of vaccines cause autism.
Oh, that's back?
Mm-hmm.
I remember that in the 90s.
Well, that saw an increase when the pandemic hit and the COVID vaccines started coming back.
Oh, the no-vaxxers.
Yep. So that started coming back, and Autism Speaks jumped back on that bandwagon. In the late 90s, early 2000s, PETA partnered with Autism to do a campaign that dairy causes autism.
I remember seeing people protesting the dairy fridge area in the grocery stores.
Yep, and they had no scientific evidence to back that up. They support the use of what's called ABA, or Applied Behavioral Analysis Therapy. What that type of therapy does is it's based on a rewards and punishment system where if you do not display autism traits, you'll get your STEM toys, or you'll get a snack, or you'll get to interact with your peers. Whereas if you exhibit your autistic traits, you will go without meals. You will be submitted to electroshock therapy, or you will be isolated from your peers in a situation similar to solitary confinement.
how is that different from being taken away and told you're different from everybody else? You're being punished for being an individual.
You're punished for being different and rewarded for conforming.
So what we need to do is we need to campaign to change the social climate that different is okay, different is good.
Absolutely.
I remember seeing something like that on some PSA on PBS when I was a little kid, and around the same time I was watching Pippi Longstocking, and of course she has amazing outfits, and I wanted to wear these outfits and go to school and be comfortable and look ridiculous, and the adults in my upbringing are like, no, you're gonna get picked on. Instead of addressing a way to teach people to not pick on those that are different, I was told to not be different.
And that's one of the very things that Autism Speaks does with their ABA therapy.
I got PTSD right now, so I don't recommend what he's,
Yep, no, 100%. And then the other part that's kind of depressing when it comes to Autism Speaks is they claim that they want to help people with autism, and as a nonprofit organization, 70% of their fundraising goes towards paying their board of directors.
Okay.
Only 30% goes towards R&D stuff, and that R&D stuff is to cure autism rather than understand and accept it.
So what I am going to do, full disclosure, is I'm going to do some additional research on my own.
Okay.
Because as much as I love you, I can't prove or disprove any of your claims. And I'm going to put some links down below. Everybody, you are allowed to do your own research. You can figure out what your beliefs are based on what you read. And I really appreciate you sharing your experiences and your stories with us.
All right. Well, I'm happy to do that.
Last question. At any point, did I make you feel uncomfortable?
No, not at all.
Okay. If I ever do, please let me know. I will easily respect boundaries.
I appreciate that. Thank
Would you like a hug?
Sure. It's good to be able to reconnect with you, Luke.
Yeah, I really appreciate you too. All right. So, any last things?
Nope, I am good.
Got any jokes?
Not really. I'm saving those for when I get an opportunity to do my autistic stand-up again.
I'm excited for that. All right, folks. We'll see you later. Hang on. I'm coming. Hang on. Here I go. All right. Oh, we got this. All right. Bye.